Hello and welcome to Gefet in the Daf. I'm Yael Shimoni, bringing to you the shir of Rabbanit Chana Gunninger Dreyfus on Daf Nun Bet Amud Bet. Together with Hadran, we're learning besides Daf Yomi, one Tosfot a week, Rashi also, to give us a little bit more lamdanic information and iyun in our learning and bikut of the Daf. So today we will deal with Maamar and Shtar Beyevama. First, let's begin with the special name that is given to the Kiddushim of Yevama, Maamar. In Daf Nun Bet Amud Aleph says the Baraita, Tanu Rabbanan, Keitzad Maamar, Natan LaKesef Ushve Kesef, Uveshtar Keitzad. Rashi explains the following, Natan LaKesef Ushve Kesef, Ve'amar la Hitkatshi li b'Maamar Yevamim, ואף על גב דאהיב לעמידי, לאו קידושים גמורין קידושי תורה, שהרי אין קידושין תופסים באשת אח, והתורה להתירתו לו לעשות כאישה נוכרית, אלא כסדר המצווה, וביהו דכתב ברחמן. So, Rashi explained to us that this word, Maamar, is describing the kiddushin of a Yavam and Yavama. And kiddushin, as we know, in regular marriage, is kesef, shtar, or bia. And here, in the kiddushim of Yavama, so we don't call them kiddushim, we call them Maamar. And Rashi explains that if instead of doing bia, you do kesef or shtar, it will not be 100% kiddushay Yavama, it won't be a full Maamar, it won't be kiddushim gumurim, because you have to do kiddushim gumurim only according to what the Torah said, and the Torah explained that when it comes to yibum, it has to be only bia. That's Rashi here, but now I want to think about the word Maamar. Why do we use a different word to describe the Kiddushim of Yevama? That I can understand, because there is a very big difference between regular Kiddushim that a man chooses his wife and a wife chooses her husband, to Maamar, which is something that neither one of them chose. So I can understand why we would use a different word, but what is hard to understand is why the word that was chosen is Maamar, which is a word of speech. This is very far from speech, as Rashi is explaining from here. This is very, very physical, technical. Why are we using this word, Maamar? So Rabbanit Chana found a very interesting commentary on this from Rabbi Aaron Mikarlin, which is a Chassid, and he has a perush of explaining what's the idea of the word Maamar. And this explanation is very special to us during this time of the year, where we're with Yom HaShoah and Yom HaZikaron, and looking at death of many people in Am Yisrael. And here Rabbi Aaron Mikarlin will give us an interesting explanation, commentary on this word Maamar that may be relevant also to us. So let's see what he says. First he asks the question, מפני מה נקראו קידושי יבמה מאמר ולא נקראים קידושים כמו כל קידושי אישה, ומהו הלשון מאמר? As we said before, these are two questions. Why do we have a different word, and why has the word that's been chosen is Maamar, which is a word that's talking about speech? ואמר רב ז"ל, שנוכל לומר כי נראה למה נקראים קידושים שהוא לשון הקדש, כי מקודם שקידשה הייתה מותרת לכל אדם, ואחר שקידשה זה נאסרה לכל העולם כהקדש שאסור לכל, נמצא בזה שירס אותה אסרה לכל העולם. אשר לזה נקרא אירוסין, בלשון קידושין, שנאסרה עליו משעת קידושין לכל העולם. אבל ביבמה לא שייך להיקרא בלשון הקדש, בשם קידושין, כי בלאו הכי הייתה מקודם גם כן אסורה לכל העולם מחמת איסור אשת איש. ותכף שבן בעלה הראשון נזקקת לאחיו, ואסורה גם כן לכל העולם מחמת הזיקוק, ולא הייתה שום עת שהייתה מותרת לכל העולם, ולזה אין שייך לקרוא בלשון הקדש. So first of our Mikalin is explaining why can't we use the word kiddushin? Because kiddushin, says Rav Aaron Mikarlin, means that you take this woman who is mutar for everyone, and now you're being asur her on all the world. When a woman is mekudeshet, she's asura b'isur chamur to everybody. To her husband, she's also asura, and not on the same level, but she's asura as a result of the kiddushin to everyone. But in Yibum, says Rav Aaron, she's asura anyway. She is an eshetish. And then when he dies, she's asura because she's yevama to everybody. So this act of Maamar does not create an isur. The name Kadash and Kiddushin is ascribing to take something that is mutar and making it isur. So that's why we can't use this for yevama, because she was asur and now she's asur exactly on the same way. So this is why we can't use the word kiddushi. But why are we using the word ma'amal? And here is the interesting passage. Let's read it together. והטעם שנקרא בלשון מאמר, ידוע שהייבום הוא כדי להקים לאחיו שם בישראל. וזהו בחינת תחיית המתים, ותחיית המתים היא על ידי מאמר, מחיה מתים במאמרו, ולזה נקראים קידושי יבמה, מאמר, תחיית המתים נקראו מאמר. So, wow, why are we using מאמר? מאמר is because, says Rav Mikarlin, it is a way to understand what's happening in Yibum is tchiyat hametim. Why is it tchiyat hametim? When God created the world, he did it in speech. And it is also said, and we say it 3 times a day, Mechayeh metim b'ma'amaru. God will revive the dead in his speech. And that is why when we do Yibum, the idea behind Yibum is tchiyat hametim. And that's why Kiddushei Bama is Ma'amar. Tchiyat hametim nikra Ma'amar. We'll return to this message at the end, connecting our learning to these days that we're in. Now I want to continue to learn Tosfot that, as we usually do, will help us understand another inyan when it comes to lamdanut in our sugyot, which are very complex and very interesting. So we continue with the Gemara. The Gemara asks, Bishtar Keitzad. I'm reminding you, the Braita said, Keitzad Ma'amar natan hakesef l'shvei kesef. Ubishtar Keitzad. As we see, the Braita is checking the 3 ways of Kiddushin, Kesef, Shtar, and Bia. And now it's asking about Shtar. Answers the Gemara, כדאמרן, כתב לה על הנייר או על החרס, אף על פי שאין בו שווה פרוטה, הרי את מקודשת לי. The Gemara says, I don't understand the question. Shtar will be exactly like the same shtar. Why would be a difference between the shtar of Kiddushei Isha and the shtar of Maamar? It should be the same thing. Says Abaye, hachi ke'amar. Shtar ktubat yevamim keitzad. Says Abaye, no, obviously, this can't be the regular shtar. Shtar, there's absolutely no reason there would be a difference between shtar kiddushin and shtar yevamim. So when we're talking about a shtar here, we're talking about a different shtar. What is the different shtar? Shtar ktubat yevamim. What is shtar ktuba? As we know, we read the ktuba under the chuppah. Ktuba is not the way in which we do the kiddushin. It is a contract describing what are the things that the man is supposed to do to the woman, and it's actually all about money. That's the ktuba. So here it says Abaye, שטר כתובת יממים כיצד, כתב לאנה פלוני פלוני בר פלונית קיבלתית פלונית יבמתי עלי לזון לפרנסה כראוי, ובלבד שתהיה כתובה על נכסי בעלה הראשון. ואילית להם הראשון תקנו לרבנן משני, כדי שלא תהיה כלה בינה והוציאה. But it teaches us that there's a difference between the ktuba of a regular woman and a ktuba of a yavama. What's the difference? When a man marries a woman, his property is mishuabad, I'm not sure how to say it in English. Any debt that the woman will have will be taken directly from the man's property. And he can't say that this property belongs to someone else before. All of his property is first and foremost there for his wife. That is true, says Abaye, when it comes to a man and wife who marry in a regular kiddushin. But when it's yibum, not the new husband's property is being connected to the woman's needs, but the late husband, the first husband. Why is that? Rashi explains to us, says Rashi, when a man and woman choose to be together, so that's why they have this contract of the money that's connected to their needs. But here, this man did not choose to be the husband of this wife, so therefore, her needs will still be taken from her late husband that chose to live with her. And he does not have to take his property and connect it to her needs. However, continues the Gemara and says, in this case that the first husband, the late husband, does not have any property now after his death, still this second husband, even though he did not choose this wife, will have to take care of her needs. Why is that? So he won't divorce her easily. And that is the difference between the ktuba of Yevama and the ktuba of a regular woman, regular kiddushin. And as I explained, that's the shtar. We're not talking about shtar kiddushin. We're talking about shtar ktuba. Now, let's look at Tosfot here. The Tosfot uses this passage, b'shtar ketzad, to teach us something connected to a totally different area, an area in Gittin. Let's look at the Tosfot. Ala niyar ala cheres. Remember that was the kushia that the Gemara asked, b'shtar ketzad. Shtar is a regular shtar. We do either niyar or cheres. Regular shtar. What would be a difference? Says here Rabbeinu Tam, כרבי אליעזר עטיה. ורבי מאיר דאמר ידי חתימה קרתי לא מהנה לדבר שיכול להזדייף ובשטר קידושין נמי באי רבי מאיר ידי חתימה כדמוכח בפרק ב' הקידושין דף מ"ח ובפרק כמה דקידושין דף ט' דמור הנחיל כתב פירשתי. So what is Rabbeinu Tam doing here? Rabbeinu Tam is connecting us to a very, very famous machloket in Masechet Gittin that we will learn a lot about. Don't worry, you'll get there. There's a very machloket whether or not it is chatima karte or de mesira karte. Let's first explain this machloket and then go back to understanding the Tosfot. So this machloket is a machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar. It's true that the Tosfot here said Rabbi Eliezer, but it seems that he's talking about Rabbi Elazar, and there's probably a problem in the text. The machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is whether or not a de mesira karte or a de chatima karte. What are we talking about? We're talking about get. A get is a piece of paper that when it's given from the man or his shluchim to the wife or her shluchim, that's when they're cut off. Question is, how do you create this piece of paper that has the power to cut off two people that were one? How are you karte? How do you cut them through? Rabbi Eliezer says, Edei mesira karte. How does this paper work? It's a regular piece of paper. What's written in it is the text of Gerushin. You don't have to have Eidim on the text, but you have to have Eidim who are seeing the man give the woman this piece of paper. And these Eidim that see it happening, they're the ones who are actually cutting the situation. Eidim seeing this piece of paper being given from hand to hand. Rabbi Meir says no. Edei chatima karti. What cuts off a man and a wife is a piece of paper that has Eidim in it, signed in the paper itself. This is a very, very big machloket. In order to understand it, we'll do just a little bit here together to give just a few ideas about this machloket. Let's begin from the nafkamina and why is this connected to our Gemara. One of the nafkaminot between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is whether or not you can write a get on a piece of material that you can fake what's written in it. So, can you write a get on a cheres? A cheres is a piece of ceramic, and what happens if you write on cheres, you can erase it with water and rewrite it. So, if you take a get and you wrote it on a cheres, somebody who wants to change anything in the get can play around with it. Not like a new piece of paper that you cannot rewrite without or erase without people noticing that something happened here, that it was foilistic. If you do it on a cheres, you can actually really change everything without anybody noticing. So, according to Rabbi Eliezer, it makes no difference, since he thinks that Edei Mesira, the Eidim who see this get being given from hand to hand, they're the one who are karte. So it doesn't matter if they're in the text or not in the text, they're real Eidim outside of the text. So it doesn't matter if you write it on cheres. But according to Rabbi Meir, you have to have Edei Chatima. So if you have Edei Chatima that were written on this cheres, somebody can come and change it. And that means the get will be puzzled. So that's why you cannot write a get in the first place on cheres. So therefore, according to our sugya, after Rabbeinu Tam said, our sugya said, oh, well, shtar can be exactly like Kiddushim. Shtar can be on a cheres. So says Rabbeinu Tam, notice, Yael, that this sugya is being paskin according to Rabbi Elazar. Why? Because if it was according to Rabbi Meir, it would not have mentioned the cheres. Because it's talking about Rabbi Elazar, it's mentioning cheres to tell you that we have actually been paskin according to Rabbi Elazar that Edei Mesira are karte. Why would they be a machloket, whether or not Edei Chatima or Edei Mesira karte? Let's give three ideas in the sugya. Why are they chol? So the first idea is this: the machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is whether or not the piece of paper is cutting off these two people apart, or it's the people, the edus, that's cutting them apart. According to Rabbi Meir, this piece of paper is the one who's doing it. It's a scissor. But according to Rabbi Lazar, the piece of paper is not the scissor. The scissor is the edus, and it's a special edus. Edut lekiyum hadavar. Edut that edim are watching this, and they're the ones who are making these couple to break into two people. That's one way to understand the machloket. Another way to understand the machloket, both of them agree. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar agree that what creates the Kiddushin is this piece of paper, the get. But according to Rabbi Meir, the get does everything, and the edim are the ones who create the get. A get is a piece of paper with edim written in it. That's why you have to have edim written in it, according to Rabbi Meir. But according to Rabbi Lazar, it's true that the get is the one who's doing the separation. But this is a scissor that works only when it is being passed from the man to the woman. And that's why it's enough to have edim outside of the get in the situation of the passage, because then these edim are as if they're written inside the shtar, because they're there at the crucial moment, which is the moment of the passing of the get from one hand to the other. It doesn't matter if the edim are there before or after, says Rabbi Elazar. Just have to be there at the instance that the get is working. So what difference does it make if they're written inside the get or if they're standing outside of the get? Edim will always create a shtar to become a get, but they don't have to be written in it. They just have to be present at the moment when this shtar is working. So that's a different way of understanding the machlok. The machlok is how the edim create a shtar. According to Rabbi Meir, the edim have to be written there and present all the way through. According to Rabbi Elazar, they have to be there in the crucial moment, and the crucial moment is the passage from one hand to the other. A third way to understand this machloket, Rabbi Meir agrees with Rabbi Elazar that it's edus lekiyum hadavar that creates the situation. It's not a piece of paper, it's the edim. But it's a machloket how edut lekiyum hadavar works. According to Rabbi Meir, edut lekiyum hadavar is not enough for people to be present. It also has to be something that you can use as proof further on if you need it. And therefore, it's not enough to have edim watching. You have to have them written in the shtar, so later on you can use these edim as proof. According to Rabbi Elazar, edut lekiyum hadavar does not need to be proof. Edut lekiyum hadavar is a way to make sure that both sides are serious. Men and women might not be serious about their gerushin. They might be thinking that they're stunned, they're doing whatever they want. If they're edim watching them, then they're serious, and that's how the gerushin work. So it's totally different machloket. According to the third understanding, there's a machloket about how edut lekiyum hadavar works. According to Rabbi Meir, edut lekiyum hadavar is a way to create a raya in Beit Din. And according to Rabbi Elazar, edut lekiyum hadavar is a way to make sure that people are serious, and that's how it works when it comes to gerushin. So these were three explanations. B'ezrat Hashem, we might come back to these explanations when we learn Gittin, to understand the idea why there would be a machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar in the question of how get works. And as we saw, Rabbeinu Tam told us, look at this Gemara, and realize that this Gemara is siding with Rabbi Elazar because it says that you can write a shtar also on a piece of cheres. But up till now, we explained that this machloket is dealing with Gittin. But our sugya is not dealing with shtar Gittin. Remember, our sugya is dealing with shtar kiddushin. So now let's read the Tosfot and see what the Tosfot is telling us. Again, על הנייר או על החרס, אמר רבנו תם, כרבי אליעזר עתיה דל רבי מאיר, דאמר ידי חתימה קרתי, לא מהני דדבר יכול להזדייף הוא. ובשטר קידושין נמי באי רבי מאיר ידי חתימה, כדמוכח בפרק ב' בקידושין. Says Tosfot, I'm telling you that this machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is not only in Gittin, it is also in Kiddushin, and I will prove it in Perek Bet, the Kiddushin Daf Memchet, and I will prove it also in Daf Tet. So let's look at Daf Tet and see how Tosfot proves that Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar are cholkim also in Shtar Kiddushin, and that's why our sugya is proof for Rabbi Elazar. So I'm moving to Tosfot in Daf Tet in Kiddushin, and says to Tosfot the following: אף על גב, דאמר בגיטין בסוף פרק שני, לא הכשיר רבי אלעזר אלא בגיטין, אבל בשטרות לא, הנמילה בשטרות העומדות לראיה, דמאינן ראוי לעמוד ימים רבים, אבל זה שאינו עשוי אלא לקדש בו אישה ולקנות בו שדה, כאין גיטין, הווי שעשוי לגרש בו את האישה, לפי שעה, ואף על פי שהשטר של קניין יכול להועיל לראיה, כמו כן הגט יכול להועיל. Says the Tosfot here, it is true that in Gitin Daf Kaf Bet it says that this machloket between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Elazar is only in Gitin. The Rabbi Elazar says that a shtar without aiding is kasher only in Gitin, but in other shtarot he agrees with Rabbi Meir. Says the Tosfot that is true in other shtarot, but not in shtar kiddushin. Why? Because there is a separation between two categories in shtarot. There are shtarot that are for raya, that are for proof. They don't do anything. They just prove that something happened. For example, if I bought a house from you or any other issue of kinyan, you don't need a shtar for the kinyan to take place. But we will write up a contract, a note, so I can prove later on in court that this transaction took place. That's shtar re'ayah. In that, of course, you need aiding because otherwise it won't be a proof at court. But there are two kinds of shtarot, and maybe more, but Gittin and Kiddushin are shtarot that there are not only proof, they create the situation. We are writing up the note because the note is the way in which we connect and disconnect. These shtarot are called shtarot kinyan. These are shtarot that create the kinyan in themselves. In these shtarot, both Kiddushin and Gittin, Rabbi Elazar is cholek and Rabbi Meir. And therefore, we know that our sugya is proof for Rabbi Elazar, even though it is talking about shtar kiddushin. Why is it still connected to the machloket? Because shtar kiddushin is shtar kinyan, and Rabbi Elazar thinks that also in shtar kiddushin you don't need to have the eidim written inside the text, but you can only have them watching when this piece of paper is being given from one hand to the other. It is true, says the Tosot, the Rabbi Elazar has no problem if you will write up the eidim inside the get, because then you have a very great get. You'll have a get that is shtar kinyan and shtar raya together. It can also be what cuts off or connects, and it can also be proof that this happened. That is true, says Rabbi Elazar, but he doesn't think that this has to be taken place. We forget that you have a written text in it that includes eidim. This will work, this piece of paper, without the eidim written inside it. And if the eidim that saw this piece of paper being moved from one to the other, they come to Beit Din, this will be a good kiddushin and a good gerushin, as opposed to Rabbi Meir that thinks that if you give a piece of paper without eidim, there is no kiddushin and nor gerushin. Doesn't matter if the eidim come to Beit Din and tell you that this actually took place. So, what did we see today? We started from trying to understand what does it mean, this special word Maamar, and why do we use the word Maamar to describe Kiddushei Yevamah. And we also learned a lot about the machlokot from Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Meir about Edei Chatima and Edei Mesira. I want to go back to the beginning. Why do we call Maamar? So we saw that Maamar is about Tchiyat HaMetim, Mechayim Metim B'Maamaro. We should know the idea of Yibum, even though we don't do Yibum today. The whole idea of Yibum is still very strong in Am Yisrael. We try to do a lot to continue people who died, especially if they died without children, how to continue their name and their zecher in Am Yisrael. And I think these days that we're in them are good times to remember that we are dedicated to find a way to be Mechayim Meitim, and people who did not have children to continue them. We will use other ways and other means to remember them and to be Mechaye their Zecher. May we celebrate and remember together, even though it's hard, through our limud, Be'ezrat Hashem. Take care.